Hi there! In this video we're talking about order of operations, or GEMDAS, that are using different things than we normally see. So we're going to talk about square roots, when we're working with fractions, and when we need to use a fraction bar. So the first example we're going to do is dealing with square roots. So if we look at this problem, we're still going to follow GEMDAS, just like we normally would for solving any problem. But if I look at this, I have a square root right here, the square root of 49. Remember from the first video that we watched on the first day of order of operations that the square root actually fits in with the groupings. And anytime you have more than one grouping in order of operations, you should start with the one that's in front. Doesn't matter which one you do first, but I like to start with the one that's in front and work my way left to right. So the first thing I'm going to do is the square root of 49, which gives me 7. Then I have plus my grouping of 8 minus 10. The next grouping I'm going to do is my 8 minus 10. So now I have 7 plus negative 2. And I'm leaving the negative 2 in parentheses so that I don't lose that negative sign when I'm solving. Then I'm going to do 7 plus negative 2, which gives me an answer of 5. Okay, so remember, you treat a square root just like you would a grouping, and remember that little square root button on your calculator. So try the next one on your own. So pause the video here, try it on your own. Alright, let's check your work now. When we solve this problem, we're still following GEMDAS, just like we would for any other regular problem. My groupings, I don't have any other groupings besides the square root here. So the square root of 25 is going to give me 5. So I have 9 to the third plus 5 minus 3 plus 9. Then I don't have any more groupings. My exponent, I have 9 to the third power. 9 to the third power is 729. And then I have the rest of the problem. Don't have any more exponents, I don't have any multiplying or dividing. Now I can do my adding and subtracting. Remember, add, subtract from left to right. So I'm going to do my first one first. 729 plus 5 gives me 734. And I still have minus 3 plus 9. 734 minus 3 gives me 731 plus 9. And 731 plus 9 is going to give me 740 as your final answer. Right? So now that we understand how to do order of operations with square roots, let's talk about order of operations with fractions. And I know fractions are scary, but they don't need to be. So we're still going to follow our GEMDAS just like we always would. And we're still going to ask ourselves the same questions. Now, do I have any groupings? Well, yes, I have brackets, which are a form of a grouping, but I also have parentheses on the inside. You always want to work on the most inside grouping first. So I'm going to do 48 plus 2. I'm not going to do that exponent because it's outside of those parentheses. I need to work inside first. So when I do that, I have 1/5 then with the bracket. 48 plus 2 gives me 50, and if you want to leave it in parentheses, you can. You don't need to. And I still have minus 15, and don't forget the bracket at the end. Then I still have a grouping here. I still have my bracket. Remember, the 50 in the grouping by itself is just like a trick. So I'm going to solve the 50 to the second power. When I solve 50 to the second power, I get 2,500. So I have 1/5 with the bracket, and I get 2,500 minus 15. Now I'm still working within the grouping. I have this right here. 2,500 minus 15. So I'll have 1/5 times 2,485. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky and you need to be careful. The fraction bar here, that means divide. So I can use my calculator and I can type it all into my calculator to get my final answer. So if I were to type this in, I'm going to type 1 divided by 5, because that's the fraction that's here. And remember, there's a multiply here when they're smushed. So I'm going to multiply by 2,485. And that's how you would type it into your calculator. 1 divided by 5 times 2,485. Then I would get my final answer of 497. Okay? So just like we did with the square roots, I want you to try this problem by yourself. So pause the video here, and when you're ready, unpause the video and we'll check it together. Alright, so now that you've done it, let's check it. So I still have my GEMDAS. Right, I'm going to solve my groupings first. Remember my groupings, not the exponent, because the exponent's outside. So I have 2 minus 5. Well, if I do 2 minus 5, I get negative 3. So I have 1/3 times negative 3 to the third power plus 16. Done with my groupings because this is a fake out here. Now I have exponents. I have negative 3 to the third power. When I solve negative 3 to the third power, I get negative 27. I'm going to leave it in parentheses so I don't lose that negative with the 27. Alright. Now, remember when they're squished, that means multiply, so if you need to, add your multiply sign there. I don't have any more exponents, so I'm stuck with multiplying or adding. Multiplying comes first. And remember, with the fractions, I'm going to type it in 1 divided by 3 times negative 27. So that's how you're going to have to type it in your calculator. So 1 divided by 3 times negative 27. If you do that, you actually get a whole number of negative 9. And then you still have plus 16. And then negative 9 plus 16 gives you 7. Okay? Alright. Last thing let's talk about GEMDAS with the fraction bar. So, I see this fraction bar and I say, oh my gosh, I have no idea what to do. Well, it's just 2 order of operations problems stacked one on top of the other with division in between. So we're going to solve everything on the top first and then divide it by everything on the bottom. So I need to do the top, then the bottom, and divide if I can. So we're still going to follow our GEMDAS. Alright. And for these problems, I kind of like to work side to side because it gives you a little bit more space. So I'm actually going to bump this over so I have some space to go across my page. So I'm going to write my first fraction bar. And I'm going to do the top first. So I'm going to do, I don't have any groupings up top, but I do have this exponent here. I have 3 to the second power, which gives me 9. So I have 9 minus 10 plus 8. And that's all over 4 minus 8 to the second power. Alright, then I have add subtract left on the top. I'm going to do the subtraction first. 9 minus 10 gives me negative 1. And I have plus 8 still on top. And then I have 4 minus 8 to the second power. And I'm going to continue my top. I have negative 1 plus 8, which gives me 7 over 4 minus 8 to the second power. Alright. Now I kind of ran out of space here, so I'm going to loop back around. So I'm going to do 4 minus 8. So now I have 7, and 4 minus 8 is going to give me negative 4 to the second power. And then I'm going to do negative 4 to the second power, solve my exponent. So now I have 7 over 16. Now, the question I have to ask myself is, can I divide 7 divided by 16? Well, if I divide 7 by 16 in my calculator, I get a decimal. So, the question I now need to ask myself is, can I simplify it? Are they even? Can I divide by 2? No. Do they end in 5 or 0 for me to divide by 5? No. Can they both divide by 3? No. And 16 doesn't divide by 7, so 7 over 16 is going to be my final answer for this problem. Another way that some of the students like to work through these fraction problems, and I'm just writing this off to the side, is you could also, instead of working side to side, you could work across above the top and above the bottom, or below the bottom. So you could do 3 to the second power would be 9 minus 10 plus 8, and then you could say negative 1 plus 8, and you could get 7 on the top, and then you could do it on the bottom. You could say, I'm going to solve this part first, so I get negative 4 to the second power, and then I get 16, and then I kind of smush these two together over here as 7 over 16. So that's another way that you could solve the same kind of problem if you have difficulty with those fraction bars. Just make sure you try to divide this at the end. So let's look at the next one, and I want you to try this one on your own. You can use whichever method you would like to use. Just make sure you watch out for that fraction bar at the end. Alright, now that you've solved this problem, let's work through it together really quick. And I'm going to use the second method that I showed you, which is the above the top and below the bottom. So if I do 8 minus 10 at the top, that's going to give me negative 2. And then if I do the bottom, I'm going to do the square root first. So the square root of 16 is 4 minus 3. And then 4 minus 3 is going to give me 1. And then I'm going to bring these two together. So I have negative 2 over 1. And then negative 2 divided by 1 is going to give me a final answer of negative 2. So that is a method you can use to solve the problem. Alright, have a great day.